I'd like to encourage you, if you have your Bibles, to be turning with me to the first chapter of the book of Revelation. Revelation chapter 1. In our last lesson on Revelation, we noted a few introductory things concerning this book. One of the things that I believe that is very important is to understand that John is writing this book, this Revelation, around 95 AD. And this was under the reign of Domitian, the Roman ruler. And that's one of the key things in our understanding of what this is talking about and how it is being perceived in our world today. Now, there are those who do not agree with the date of 95 or thereabouts. I always say thereabouts because I don't know the exact minute that this was written down. But dealing with the timing of its writing sometimes dictates how people desire to understand this book. And I guarantee you, throughout the ages, there have been many, if not the majority, who will take this book and they will place into it their own ideas and thinking and leave out what God is trying to do. In the first 8 verses of Revelation chapter 1, it brings to light what God is telling us in this inspired writing. And this is the oldest of the inspired writings. And that is the Revelation. Now, there's going to be people out there that's going to disagree with that. And everything that is noted within the context of Revelation, there's somebody out there that wants to put a twist on it, or they want it a little different, or they want it to mean something else. So you're going to face that as you study it, as you look at it. My concept, now this is my concept, is that we look at the scriptures, we keep it in the context, we see what God is trying to tell us and how He is utilizing the apocalyptic language or literature to explain this, especially to the recipients that it was given to in the beginning. That's a key factor in understanding this. So let's look, if we may, here in chapter 1, Revelation, verse 1. It says, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show to his bondservants the things which must soon take place, and he sent and communicated it by his angel to his bondservant John, who testified to the word of God and to the testimony of Jesus Christ, even to all that he saw. Now, he talks about the revelation. Again, there are individuals who will what's the word I'm thinking about? They'll misdefine this word and make it mean everything that you can think of. But this word denotes, if you will look here on our overhead, a disclosure of truth or instructions concerning things before unknown. It is used of events by which things or states or persons whereunto withdraw from view are made visible to all. In essence, it's laid bare, it's making it naked. In essence, what God is doing is revealing what he needs these people to understand, to give them encouragement and to help them through the persecution that they are facing. That's simply what the revelation is. It is a revealing of God's truth. And we note that here in verses 1 and 2. The revelation, it is that which came from God through Christ, through an angel, through John to his bondservants in the 7 churches of Asia. It's real simple. Don't make it difficult. Let's go back and reread this, beginning in verse 1. It's the revelation of Jesus Christ. Where'd he get it? Which God gave him. For what reason? To show his bondservants the things which must soon take place. And he sent and communicated it by his angel to his bondservant John. So this is inspired. And that's what he's denoting here within this, is that it is inspired. Now, I want you to look in verse 1. And this is one of those keys to understanding this writing. Look right here, if you will. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to show to his bondservants the things which must soon take place. That little phrase right there is a key, which must soon take place. Now, there are those who want to take the entire writing of the Revelation and they want it to mean something way down 2,000, 10,000 years down the way. But that's not what the context here in even verse 1 is telling us. It's talking about things that must shortly take place. Or, as it notes here in this, things that must soon take place. Now, if I tell you that I'm going to come by and see you at your home, and you're going to say when, and I say I'm going to be there soon. I'm going to be there shortly. What are you going to think? That I'll be there next year? You're not going to think that. Am I going to be there in 5 years? No, you're not going to think that. You figure that you better get up and get dressed because he's coming right quick. That's what you think. It's going to happen. That's a key factor here. So many people out there just want to throw that out. Well, here's the thing about this phrase. It also uses the word must. And the word must dictates the idea that it's got to happen. That's what that word is denoting. This has to happen in a very short time, shortly, soon, whatever word that you want to use there. So the revelation is about the things which must shortly take place. Down in chapter 1 and verse 19, it says, "Write therefore the things which you have seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall take place after these things." Bringing to light the things that John is writing, that you need to write what you were told, and that's what he did. And these things were going to take place. And it wasn't going to be some thousands of years down the way. So in verses 1 and 2, we find the sender. We find who is sending this revealing, this revelation. And they're revealing as a timestamp, something that's going to soon take place. Now look at verse 3. It says, "Blessed is he who reads and those who hear the words of the prophecy and heed the things which are written in it, for the time is near." Now, there are 7 blessings, or we might call them beatitudes, within the revelation. And it's kind of like unto, all right? Are you with me? Kind of like unto the beatitudes that we find in the gospel. They're denoting the blessings for those who hear the words of the prophecy and heed the things that are written in it. Now, I want you to note something. For the time is near. That goes right back to verse 1 when it says the things which must soon take place shortly. Now, back to those blessings, beatitudes, if you will. It notes, of course, here, the blessing for the one who reads and hears the words. In chapter 14 and verse 13, it says that I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds follow with them." In 16:15 it says, "Behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake and keeps his garments, lest he walked about naked and men see his shame." Chapter 19, verse 9 says, "And he said to me, Write, blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he said to me, These are true words of God." In chapter 20 and verse 6, it says, "Blessed and holy is the one who has a part in the first resurrection. Over these the second death has no power, but they will be priests of God and of Christ and will reign with him for 1,000 years. And behold," this is 22:7, "and behold, I am coming quickly. Blessed is he who heeds the words and the prophecy of this book." And then down in 22:14, he says, "Blessed are those who wash their robes, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter by the gates into the city." These are encouragements, these blessings. They are encouraging things for a people that are facing some of the most difficult times that humanity has had to face. And he's giving to them a message of comfort, a message of promise, because of what they were enduring, which is not good. What these people were doing about or dealing with. It's that message of comfort and promise that we even need today. And somebody's going to say, well, how does this apply to us today? Well, we see what they went through, the 7 churches of Asia. We see how they dealt with it. When we face persecution, we can deal with it too. That's what it boils down to. Because we are God's children. Now, modern commentators are generally a selfish bunch, wanting to pilfer the revelation all for themselves and leave it practically useless to the ancient brethren who first received it. And that's true. They don't want to say, well, we understand who sent this revelation. We don't want to understand the timestamp on this revelation. And we really don't want to think about the seven churches of Asia who were the recipients of this letter. But they want to twist it around and in essence, utilize the revelation for their own goals, whatever those goals may be. I guarantee you there has been billions upon billions upon billions of dollars made by someone writing what they want the book of Revelation to reveal. Well, they have. It's a reality. And you can go on. I remember back years ago whenever I was a young man, and they would have these people on television, and they would be talking about Revelation. Well, and half the time they would call it Revelations, which it's not. It's only singular. There's only one. But anyway, they would have all these big things up here, and they would be saying, well, this meets this, and this is that, and all these things have got to come to pass. Then Jesus is going to return. And they make billions of dollars off that. They sell their books. They sell their videos or whatever it may be. But that's not what the revelation is about. It's about giving that encouragement, giving that comfort to a people in dire need. And we've talked about these people previously. We always need to understand when Jesus wrote, the time is near, it was. The revelation was revealing to these individuals in the seven churches of Asia encouragement. And we'll jump into that just a little bit more in a moment. If the time did not come as quickly as God promised, his word would be unreliable. He said it's coming, and it's going to be there. It's going to be soon, shortly, however you want, whichever word you want to utilize there. The chronological context of the prophecies aptly apply to the first and second centuries of the first millennium, not the third. Not the third. Something to think about when we think about that third century. What went on? Y'all can do that own study. In the first three verses, you can learn everything you need to know relative to when these predictions were to be fulfilled. And that was shortly. The time is near. This is going to happen. For the purpose of our study in the 21st century, we take encouragement by understanding that when we face difficulties, that we can be overcomers. And Revelation, that's one of the key words, is overcomer. For the purpose of the early 21st century study, they intended for the year 100 or sometime in the 21st century. It's not applicable to us the same way it was applicable in the first century. That makes it a little clearer maybe. If words still mean things and the promises of the caring God can still be trusted, these comforting predictions were to find fulfillment long ago, not today. But we can still take encouragement, noting God took care of them. He promised to take care of us. Verse 1, again, must shortly come to pass. We've talked about that. Must is an impersonal verb that indicates a moral necessity. I was talking about that a while ago. The word must. It is an impersonal verb that indicates a moral necessity is involved. The nature of the case is such that the things revealed here must take place as and when prophesied, not something along and down the way. So let's look at the recipients of this revelation, this revealing, if you will. The book is addressed not to, in essence, the modern church or authorities, but it's directly addressed to the 7 churches of Asia Minor, and none of them exist today. But they were those that were undergoing a desperate persecution under Domitian. So there again, that brings us into that idea of being written about 95 AD. Now, we went over, yes, sir.
Just real quick, the 7 churches of Asia, we know that there was more congregations around at that time.
Absolutely.
But 7 mean a perfect number.
I haven't got to that yet, but yeah.
I know it was addressed to 7 churches of Asia, but universally it could be addressed to the entire universal church, right?
Specifically, universally, it would be addressed to all of us, even up until today.
Yeah.
But when we look at it specifically, it's the 7 churches of Asia. And the number 7 denotes that which is perfect. And whenever we talk about the 7 spirits, it's not talking about literally 7 spirits. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
The 7 churches, they're, like you said, they're directly, specifically the 7 churches that's mentioned.
Yep.
But it could, the letter was probably announced to everybody. The rest of the congregations, eventually, universal.
It's applicable in the sense that we can take the same encouragement from the writing when we face persecution. What I'm noting here is so many people want to say, well, it really talks about something in the future. All this stuff in here, and they make up all kinds of stuff about it. You know what I'm talking about. Or somebody will come along and say, well, this is not applicable to us today at all, which it is. It's applicable to give us encouragement. But specifically, it's to the 7 churches of Asia.
But I was just making the point that it could also
universally be applied to all of us throughout the centuries. Yeah. But the reason, I'm getting ahead of myself again. The reason it's apocalyptic is because of the 7 churches of Asia. So they would understand, those new Christians over there in Asia Minor, so they would understand what's being written, and the Romans would not. They wouldn't understand that. That's why it is written apocalyptically. Does that make a lick of sense? Oh, gracious. Now, we studied a series on the 7 churches of Asia that we can go back and look at, I think. We made a series of this, and we looked at the problems, what these people were going through, and the difficulties. Now, in verse 4, it says, John, to the 7 churches that are in Asia, grace to you and peace from him who is, and who was, and who is to come, and from the 7 spirits who are before his throne. Again, we talk about how this is written to these individuals. In our other lessons on the 7 churches of Asia, these people were becoming Christians. This is the short part. They were becoming Christians, and because they were either leaving Judaism or the pagan religions that were in those communities, these 7 churches, they were put out in the street. They couldn't work. They couldn't sell their goods. They couldn't feed their families. They were literally kicked out of their extended families. It was done. They were out. They were in the street and starving. That was the situation, and that's the short version. I encourage you to go back and look at those other videos. Again, John is writing to these 7 churches that are in Asia. He's bringing this to light. Okay, in Revelation chapter 1 and verse 11, it notes these 7 churches that are specifically in the 95 AD time frame. It says, "Write in the book what you see and send it to the 7 churches in Ephesus and in Smyrna and in Pergama and in Thyatira and to Sardis and to Philadelphia and to Laodicea." These were the people that were dealing with the persecution of Domitian, was this group right here at this time period. When this was written, shortly, the time is near. We do know that there was other, of course, persecutions in the world. Rome was always under persecution. But this was when this group was being persecuted that is enumerated here in this passage here in verse 4. The 7 churches of Asia are spoken of as bondservants, loved and released from sin by his blood. It's talked about as a kingdom, a priest, and partakers in the tribulation and the kingdom. Now, Revelation is sometimes called the Apocalypse, not because it describes some great destruction, but because it is given in sign and symbolism. And that's what I was talking about just a moment ago. These Christians, these new Christians in these 7 congregations, they were suffering this horrendous persecution. Just think about how it would be that because you became a Christian, you couldn't feed your family anymore. They're starving. Or you may be dragged out into the street and murdered. You may be taken to Rome and put in the Colosseum. It was unlimited, the horrible stuff that was going on. That is the reason that Revelation is written with so many signs and symbols that would not mean very much to those spectators, those on the outside. The book is not to be read with an eye toward a literal fulfillment of every prophecy. This is taken from some of the Old Testament ideas and writings, especially Daniel, some of those. Revelation is filled with vibrant images, many of them recycled from previous use in the Old Testament, which make them more understandable to an audience steeped in Mosaic reading. It becomes somewhat more difficult then for modern men to deduce exactly what historical events may have been fulfilling what sign, but that is less than necessary anyway. The book was written to assure the first Christians that their cause and sufferings were honorable and that God had not left them. So when we think about the word apocalypsis, don't get excited. It just means that they're using a form of writing to communicate with one group and not communicate with the others. He also notes here in verse 4, grace to you and peace from him who is, and who was, and who is to come, and from the seven spirits who are before the throne. The usual combined salutation of grace and peace is bestowed by John. First, from God the Father, from him who is and him who is to come. This is at once a declaration of the immutable and eternal nature of God. And of course, we note the seven spirits on the throne. This denotes the idea of those congregations, those seven congregations. If you look down at the bottom, we talked about that just a little bit a while ago. The number 7 came to symbolize the meaning of totality or completeness associated with God's authority on the earth. This is God's authority on the earth, the number 7. So these were 7 congregations. We know in the middle here, we'll look at this right here. It says there is only one Holy Spirit, but here the symbolic number is used to represent the perfection of his person, his attributes, and his work. And we'll see that as we talk about God being the Alpha and the Omega, whenever we get down into this next section. So let's start there at verse 5 next Wednesday evening. We'll start there at verse 5 and continue on from where we are currently.